Today we taste Yakida.
That's a mead made in the Welsh tradition of using basically every kind of medicinal herb out there. There's a whole ton of stuff. Let me get my notes and tell you. There is dried elderberries, ginger, thyme, yarrow, dandelion honey.
Thanks to Joe from our VIP.
And we have this small little amount here, almost like we meant it for tasting. Actually, we didn't. If you watched the last video, it was just this is how much was left after we bottled the rest of it. So I'm going to pour off some glasses here, and we're going to go through our system of tasting. For those curious, this is room temperature, and we do it at room temperature now because we found that that is where you get the most flavor, the most everything from a brew. If you prefer to drink it cold, feel free. But for tasting, probably not the best way to go because you're going to find out things that you don't like when you taste it warm or room temperature that if you cool it might go away. So you're going to miss out on that. Very, 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 like almost never. It just doesn't happen. Flavors come out when it's cold that weren't there at room temperature, so there's not much point. So we're going to do room temperature.
The color is gorgeous. Okay,
yeah.
this is so rich, so dark, so screaming at you. I am
really-
elderberry,
You can't see through it. It's just up there.
but it is clear.
Yeah. Oh, this is clear. I can see like the very bottom of the glass when I hold it up to the light. I can see it's very red.
It color-wise, it actually reminds me of like a Pinot Noir or a really dark Merlot. It's yummy. The color is just fantastic. I love that color.
It has such a unique bouquet. It's fruity and herbal at the same time. It's hard to describe.
When I smelled it initially, I didn't swirl it first, and I was getting primarily herb. But then when I swirled it a little and then took another inhale, I got that fruity, juicy elderberry essence plus the herb. So that was better.
What she means by swirl is you use glasses like this because it has a very small opening and it's a tulip shape. When you swirl it like this, it makes all the vapors go up. Some of the liquid actually, it's condensing or not condensing, it's evaporating all the time. And it will take smell compounds with it so you can actually smell it. By concentrating those vapors into the funnel, you get to get the most out of the aroma. This is just amazing. It's got almost a licorice smell, though.
Yes.
I do get a little bit of a licorice.
But didn't we find out?
One of the herbs has licorice. I think it was yarrow. Has to be yarrow. Yarrow has a licorice type of smell, apparently. And we knew that, but I didn't really get it off of the herbs themselves. But I'm getting it now, just a little bit. And we're not huge fans of licorice, but in this case, it's not objectionable. It mixed with the elderberry is actually quite nice. I am going to take a short sip. Now, the short sip is to acclimate your tongue to the presence of the alcohol and the liquid itself. We found out that sometimes the flavors need to be acclimated too, so you can pick out more. And it just means take a sip, swallow it really quickly. Don't think about it. Don't hold it. Just do it.
I make that ridiculous face not because it's an unpleasant experience, but because I find myself rather consistently fighting the short sip. And I know, hey. I know that I'm talking like Brian, so
Yeah.
I'm dangerous.
It scared me.
Now you derailed me. So when I'm taking that short sip, if I find something pleasing, I'm like, no. And so I'm like, no, you have to swallow this short sip. So that's why I make that face, because I'm having this internal battle, and I'm ridiculous, and that's just how it is.
And this is why we love her. This ended at 1.020 final gravity, which many would say is far too sweet. This is not sweet. I would actually call this dry tasting. Now, we do have skewed palates, and even more so now with the new diet that we've been doing. We've cut out salt and sugar. I taste a lot more things now that were kind of muted before. But this does not taste like a sweet beverage to me. I know there is a little bit of sugars in there, but I think elderberry is big on having almost a bitter, earthy, and then all those herbs will give it that bitter. So that balanced it beautifully. When I say dry, I don't mean in an unpleasant way. It has sweet notes to it, but not. It doesn't taste like a sweet beverage, but there's a little bit of a sweetness there. It's actually quite lovely.
And we talked about this briefly in the finishing video, but I attribute that dry sensation to all the herbs and the tannins in here that create that sensation in your mouth, similar to if you drink straight black tea. And I can relate both of those to that. Now, this is definitely way more herbaceous in its flavor profile than just a straight black tea would be, but that drying tannic sensation is very similar to
But it doesn't give you that
tea.
mouth pucker of black tea. But it has a lot of tannic qualities to it, making that sweetness balance really, really nicely.
And I think the sweetness, because it's so strong in the flavor of the elderberry and the herbs, actually becomes a more tactile sensation than reading as sweet. So you get the tannic sensation, but then that's balanced by the additional sweetness in a more velvety mouthfeel. So it kind of balances each other out, if that makes any sense.
Sorry, just enjoying my long sip. Okay, on the entrance, it's mildly velvety. Not thoroughly velvety, but there's a definite like viscous mouthfeel to it. That licorice note is there, but it comes across almost as like a spicy black licorice rather than just boring licorice or like a fennel flavor. It's actually a little spicy, has almost a little bit of a heat to it. I get a clove sensation as well. Definitely feel some honey there. The honey character came through. I think dandelion honey was a neat choice for this one. Just really kind of worked out well. And the elderberry just like tops it off with that sweetness. It's not overpowering. No one flavor stands out. It actually melds really nicely. And then on the finish, I get a little bit more of the tannic quality, which I like that on a finish, and it goes away. What I'm not getting is that weird bitter note in the back of my throat from fermented honey. I'm actually not getting it. I think the other flavors are so strong that it's overpowering it.
I am getting an additional note that almost reads as an oat sensation.
Okay. That could be the time.
And it's interesting because I get, like he said, I get the velvety up front, and then I get kind of a berry sensation, almost plum-like.
Oh, yeah, yep.
And then that is intermingled with some of the herbs, and then it gets more strong into the herbs, and then I get that almost oaked sensation. And I'm attributing that because it reminds me of something I've tasted in whiskey. So that's why I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. Yep, I know what you mean now.
It might be oat. But that isn't even the finish for me. It goes beyond that.
That's why I moved her glass earlier.
To more of the herbs, and it just kind of softens and lingers, and you get that, like Brian was saying, the clove.
And I know where that spice is coming from.
And it kind of makes your your tongue numb.
The spice, by the way, is coming from the ginger.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot there's ginger in here. Because I was about to say, I don't really notice. Oh, yep, I do. That's what I'm getting. You get the bite of the ginger, but not the flavor of it so much. But that's giving us that clove licorice spice flavor, I think. Because we're both getting it, so it's got to be there. This is very complex, though. This is wonderful, rich. It's very reminiscent of a decent, like a good quality dry red wine.
Yeah.
It's very reminiscent of that.
Yeah.
So, like, for eating with food, anything that you would drink a red wine with, drink this. You'll be very happy. It's wonderful. I would cook with this. I would put it in sauces. I would marinate meats in this. I would cook meats in this. I would put this into chili. Oh my God, I could put this in anything. It's that good.
It would be lovely paired with fondue if you are into that sort of thing.
But it's just a wonderful thing. The berry makes it a little bit more of a fruity thing than a true red wine, but it's still in that same wheelhouse. It's pretty close to it.
Sure.
If you like fruity things, you'd like this. Like if you're not a huge fan of red wine, but you like fruity wines, you'd really like this. As far as filling a mug and enjoying this over time, it's not my thing for that. I like it. Don't get me wrong. I really like this. But I don't know that I would do that. I'd much rather enjoy this with food. I think with food,
I think with food, I would
it's
agree.
going to shine.
It's
You're going
just
to taste more nuance with food than you ever would drinking this alone.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me to say because I actually really like this one. I mean, it's not perfect,
Right.
but it's very nice. Very nice.
I'm glad that you mentioned the complexity because this is seriously complex in all of its aspects as far as I'm concerned. And when we were first making it, for some reason in my head, I thought this might turn out boring. And I don't know why.
Oh, got the bitter note.
I got
Sorry.
I got that notion, but boring is certainly not a word I would use to describe this beverage.
I know what she means. I mean, it was, elderberries, ginger, thyme, yarrow. Okay, doesn't sound exciting. It's a bunch of herbs, right? Doesn't sound all that great. But I actually researched each of these things, and that's something that a lot of people don't realize that we do. We actually look these things up, find out what their flavor profiles are, what they do. I talk to people who have used these ingredients before, and what was your experience? What did you like? What didn't you like? What did it do? How long did you leave it? How much did you put in? And formulate a recipe from that. And that's why most of our recipes work, because there's a ton of work put into them, so we know they're going to work. It's just a matter of how do the ingredients interact? And in this one, they interacted really well.
And another aspect to why we selected these specific ingredients is actually our friend Sam recommended them for their medicinal properties. Yes. There was a side note discussion on the Facebook group about honey and its medicinal properties and what herbs you could add to it to increase those medicinal properties. And Sam gave a list, and we're like, that would be super cool to turn that into a mead. And then we were thinking about metheglins and the Welsh tradition of creating these medicinal meads for health benefits. And so this should have a cornucopia of health benefits.
Absolutely. Now, something, there's some trade-off here. Honey, when it's fermented, loses some of its medicinal benefits. By leaving a little bit of unfermented honey or leaving it a little sweet, you do still retain some, but it's up for grabs how much. I mean, studies haven't really been done to prove one way or the other, but there is a lot of scientific knowledge that would say you lose probably most of the good medicinal properties. Because the main thing about honey is the fact that it's an antiseptic. Now, it's only an antiseptic because of the concentration before it gets hydrated, before you add water to it. Once you add water to it, now it can ferment or spoil. Right. So right there, you lost the properties of what makes honey great. Now, it does have a lot of nutrients and good stuff for you, too. It's questionable how much of that stays through the fermentation process. It's not something I have an answer to, but man, I would love to have a full answer to that because I see conflicting research on it. So that's why I don't really want to make a judgment on that, but I would say it's safe to say you lose probably most of it. That seems to be the general consensus. So, we like this one.
We do.
This is very good.
Oh, numbers.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah, I was leading up to that. I was trying to soften the blow just a little bit.
I'm like, what do we have left to do?
I would actually make this again. And I'm trying to think, because this is what I do when we're formulating our number, is I look at the scales, 1 to 10. 1 is, I might not serve this to my worst enemy, and I am probably afraid of drinking it, any more of it because I will be sick, or someone else would. 5 means perfectly drinkable. Nothing wrong with it. It's good. Okay? So between 1 and 5 means probably not all that great. Above 5 starts to become very good to me. 10 means I see no way to improve this short of major change. I mean,
it's a shining,
it wouldn't be the same thing
glowing
anymore.
Beacon of perfection.
We have actually given a 10. We gave 1 10 so far. But that's what that is. So I look at it and I say, instead of saying, oh, well, where does this fall? I say, what would I improve? Can it be improved? Without further ado, because we've had a lot of ado already, do you have a number?
Sure.
1, 2, 3,
7
8.
and a half.
Wow, I'm giving higher scores than you lately. What the
I
heck?
know, I'm being stingy.
You're being frugal with your numbers. Okay,
All
you were
right,
lower.
now,
Explain. Explain
I
yourself.
will explain myself. And if I had a caveat to say, in these particular situations, would my number change? Yes, absolutely. Now, this with food would be a much higher score
I
because
agree.
I imagine the interplay between the flavors of the food and the flavors of this beverage, it would just bounce back and forth and everything would be happy and wonderful and I would dance around and sing, which I am known to do anyway. But
This would be good with a burrito.
just as a beverage on its own, I'm like, oh, that's cool. That amount, sure. But a full-on mug of it to just chill out and relax with, I think would be way too much for me. And
But what if you did it like a glass of wine, just 4 ounces?
Trouble finishing it. That's why I want to drink this with food, and I want to drink this with food, and I want to drink this with food. Other than that, maybe if I was feeling really, really ill and I just wanted to feel better, I might drink this because whether it's medicinal or not, which I believe there are going to be some medicinal properties in there, regardless
the herbs are going to keep some of
the honey being fermented. I think psychologically it would help me, if that makes sense. So that's why I gave it a lower.
7.5 is a good score, though.
Sure.
That's a good mead.
I am seeing potential in this to bump that up, and that's why I gave it a 7.5, because I'm thinking, okay, this is not perfection for me on a standalone, but it is closer to the Derica wheelhouse, as we keep talking about, than other things, because I am getting those essence of fruit, which I am a fan of fruit. So if I were to change this recipe, I might keep pretty much everything in there as is, but add a different fruit. And since I'm already going towards the plum range of things, I just might chuck some plums in there and let it go to town.
That. So you mean in addition to the elderberry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I could totally see that. Now that she's... Oh, did you have more?
The last thing is the licorice note. Now, we've mentioned multiple times that neither one of us are really a fan of licorice. And so I'm wondering, even though it's not a predominant flavor in this beverage...
Is it taking it down?
If the fact that it's in there at all making us lower our number, perhaps. Now, Brian thinks it's the yarrow, but I want to say when we were researching elderberries, their scientific name led us believe that they're part of the licorice family.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
I may be talking out
No, I
of
think
my
you're right. I think you're right.
rear end, but who knows?
So between the elderberries and the yarrow, we might be
maybe
getting
just tone those down a little bit, or take one out.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm kind of in the same. I'm kind of in the same boat as you here. The reason I give it an 8 is because I find this very good, like well above a good mead. This is an excellent mead.
And that's why I wanted to preface it with food.
Oh yeah.
Thumbs up.
With food, this is even higher than 8 to me. It's like a 9, you know. But that licorice note kind of bothers me. And I was in my head thinking about it, and now she just said it's the elderberries. Okay, adding something else to offset the elderberry. And you know what I think would be great instead of plum is blueberry. I think blueberry would give the sweetness back with still keeping a tartness. Mix it half elderberry, half blueberry, and you get the sweet tart thing, the fruitiness, less of that licorice, and I might add more ginger to it to give even more of the spice bite, and I think that would really enhance this a lot. The sweetness level is perfect. I don't think I would adjust that at all.
With the blueberry, would you add maybe just a touch of lemon?
We could certainly use like lemon juice or lemon zest. I think lemon zest would be great. So I'm already formulating a new and improved Yakida 2, the return. And we'll come up with another... Sorry, that was totally unplanned. We'll come up with another version of this, I think, because this is a great start to this.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we can make it a 10 with just a couple of adjustments.
Yeah, this... don't take any of our critiques of this beverage to be negative,
Oh, no,
because we're actually both, and I'm feeling this, we're both actually really excited about this starting point.
And we were both like, it's going to be all right.
And we're viewing it now as a starting point, and that there is room, not only is there room for improvement, but there is...
We have company. Tigger came to visit.
But there is impetus, there is
Tigger.
inspiration in our starting point to want to continue and go further. There's been other times where we're like, oh, we could do this, yeah, well, whatever, we're not going to worry about it.
But a lot of time we just kind of skip it and move on.
Where
Because
this
there's so many meats to make.
This one's like, okay, this is really cool. How can we make it cooler without the aid of a cat?
Yeah. The aid of the cat, you just got to be careful with them. Is she going to come over here?
Where are you going?
She wants to come to Daddy.
Are you going to make a viewing?
Come on. People want to see you. You've made noise now. This is Tigger, also known as Daddy's little girl. And they're normally kept away from this area while we're filming. Because, cats, hair, dander, that sort of thing. Not really the most sanitary of things. So, she's taking advantage of the fact that this was a tasting, so it's not necessarily a sanitary zone.
We don't need this in here.
But, yeah, nobody wants to see her butt on camera. It's not that kind of show, Tigger. Come on now.
All right, step away.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, she talks back to me.
Whenever Derica and I argue, she gets in the middle and yells at her. It's pretty funny. It's kind of awesome.
So, if you enjoyed this video...
Look up. There's another one. You might like that one, too.